Time again for Hebrew. Now we are in Jonah 2:7. We are almost done with chapter 2 of Jonah. We'll be kind of halfway as far as the chapters are concerned through Jonah. And believe it or not, you will have known all the main topics of Hebrew pretty much, or at least been exposed to them when we're halfway through. So we have, including this video, 4 more videos before we are done with the half of Jonah. See if you can pronounce Jonah 2:7 here in Hebrew. Here's how I would pronounce it. Bahit atef alai nafshi et Adonai, or Yahweh, zakarti. Okay, what do you recognize in this line? First thought you might have is, I wonder if that ba is in. Ding, 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 that would be correct. Ba is in this particular case. Sometimes ba is actually part of the word, the first letter of the word, but in this case, it's the preposition ba, in. All, you might know, is upon, the preposition upon. And you might be thinking with that yod, that yod is me or my or something like that. You'd be correct. Same with the Hirik yod here, that's my. And the Hirik yod here indicates a first person common singular as well. So we've got a lot of I stuff going on here. Upon me is the way this would be translated. Nafshi is my soul, or better, my life. With Hirik yod being the possessive my. T, hopefully you are beginning to recognize, is the first common singular perfect ending. So zakar T means I remembered. Let's bring up the translation here. So zakar T is I remembered. Et is what? Et is the definite direct object marker. Direct object approaching. So what did I remembered Yahweh. Or it's poetic, so it says, Yahweh, I remembered. You don't translate the et. I remembered Yahweh is the last part here. The first part is a little harder. You have to play a little with it. Infinitives in languages like Hebrew and Greek are kind of like games. You just learn the rules, and they don't work like English infinitive. English infinitives are real basic, to dream, the impossible dream, but to faint doesn't make much sense at all. To faint upon me, my life, you kind of say, what is that? You got to put it in your computer and, oh, okay. When my life was fainting, right when I was about to die in the fish at the bottom of the sea, then I remembered Yahweh. Turning point. This is an infinitive construct. And by the way, the reason I thought in my head, I wonder if this is an infinitive construct, is because there are really only two verb type things that can take a preposition on the front. I believe that participles can do that, but the other thing that can do that is what are called infinitive constructs. We've seen one infinitive construct, but when I saw the ba on a verb, then I thought, I bet this is an infinitive construct, and it is. The other thing about this is, do you remember us being introduced to a stem called the Hithpa'el, or the HtD stem? The hit, it's taken a hit. That tells you that it's the HtD stem. So when you break this monstrosity apart, ba'atef, the ba is the preposition. We don't have to stick with in, because that's not going to be good English. I saw one translation used when. So when my life was fainting within me, or something like that. Again, doesn't sound like an infinitive in English, does it? We just have to play with it and come up with something that makes good English, because bad English is not a good translation. You might think, I think there's some people who think if the more Hebrew I am in my English translation, the better the translation. No, that's actually wrong. It's the better the meaning is conveyed in economical English. That's a good translation. So it's not good English not a good translation to say, "In to faint my life upon me." That's a horrible translation, even though it's very wooden, very literal, as it were. It's a bad translation. So the ba is the preposition in, and it hints that this is an infinitive construct, like I said, because you just don't put prepositions on verbs. The hit tells you it's the HtD stem. We've seen several stems. In fact, the next video, I think I'll systematize them for you. We've seen that the nifal stem makes it passive. The Hithpa'el stem makes it causative. I think we may have seen the doubling stem. We'll talk about that in the next video. But this is the Hithpa'el, which is generally reflexive. However, the word ataf means to be feeble. And so to feeble myself, to faint, it doesn't work very well. So I want to show you, I need to start showing you some tools. And I want to start by showing you a tool you may know about called a Blue Letter Bible. If I can find it here in my world here. Come on, cooperate. There we go. Okay, so this is Blue Letter Bible. A Blue Letter Bible gives, of course, an English translation in whatever version you want. I usually click down to the RSV because the King James, in my opinion, is not the most accurate original, doesn't reflect the most accurate original text, although it's perfectly fine in terms of truth and theology and all that. I don't want to get off on that. But what you can see is it goes word by word. It tells you this is a taf, and it even highlights it. And so Zakar is remember. And so there's the name of God. And so this is a nice little thing. It also tells you, it has a little dictionary in there. There was a guy named Strong's who in the 1800s went through all the Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic of the Bible and identified what the Hebrew words were, what the Greek words. He alphabetized them. And so ataf is the 5,848th Hebrew word in alphabetical order of the Hebrew words used in the Old Testament. But if I click on that number, my computer's not cooperating with me. There we go. We get some dictionary information. One very helpful thing at the bottom is a concordance. It tells you all the places where the word appears in the Old Testament. And by the way, I'll show you interlinearbible.org at some point as well. You can't necessarily trust all these dictionaries. The best dictionary is Brown Driver Briggs. So Gesenius is not bad, it's older, but Brown Driver Briggs is the best of the lexicons, which is a dictionary. It tells you here that the base meaning of the word is to turn aside. So anyway, to turn myself aside is to faint. What I'm getting at here is, and again, this is not necessarily a great, I do it myself. I don't necessarily trust this outline of biblical usage, but I want to illustrate to you that this word can have different meanings depending on the stem. So one meaning it can have is to turn aside. Another meaning it can have is to envelop yourself, apparently. Another meaning it can have is to be feeble. And this meaning takes on some variations in different stems. So in the Nephal stem, it means to faint. In the Hithpa'el, it means to show feebleness. And in the Hithpa'el, it means to faint as well. And you might say, well, why would the Nephal and the Hithpa'el have the same meaning? Ours is not to question why. Ours is just to memorize or die. But basically, what I'm trying to illustrate here is the fact that sometimes in a particular stem, you just have to look up the definition. It's not something you could have predicted very well. You just have to look it up. If you were a native ancient Hebrew speaker, you would have known these things. You wouldn't have had to even think about them. Like if English is your native language, you don't even think about the different meanings that a word can have. So sometimes you just have to look up what meaning it likely had. There's several new features, by the way, some new features of Blue Letter Bible that are pretty exciting to me. One is you can click on the word and it will do the analysis. So here it's telling you that it has the preposition but on it, and that it has this. It'll even pronounce the base word. And then down here it tells you the analysis. It tells you it's Hithpa'el. It tells you it's an infinitive construct. This inline thing here is pretty neat too, where it does the kind of a interlinearbible.org analysis as well. Well, I've geeked out enough on that with you. What I wanted to point out is that the infinitive construct here, it basically has, why is it called a Hithpa'el stem? Because look, Hithpa'el, the vowels follow the Hithpa'el pattern in the infinitive construct. Hithpa'el is actually, the name of the stem, Hithpa'el, is actually the third masculine singular perfect form. But it also, by coincidence, well, not by coincidence, happens to be the infinitive construct form as well. Well, if this is overwhelming you, don't worry, la, 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 la. Let's go ahead and finish the verse, and then we'll be done with this video. See if you can pronounce this line. V'tavo eleka tefillati el Hithpa'el, the palace, kadsheka. Okay, what does this mean? Well, vav patak doubling is converted imperfect. Tav is a third feminine singular performative in Hebrew. So, and she came. Bo means to come or to go. And she came. Eleka, to you. El means to. Ka is the second masculine singular. It's referring to God here. She came to you. Well, who is she? Well, she is tefillah. Tefillah is the word for prayer, and it has a kamatz he on it. It's feminine. So it's not a real she. I'm not a real she. Prayer is conceived as a feminine word in Hebrew. And my prayer came to you is what it means here. You get the to you, I hope. I hope you get the and she came, and the reason it's she is because of prayer. And then hirkiot is my, right? My tefillah. Tefillati is my prayer. Okay, and my prayer came to you, El Hithpa'el, to the palace of your holiness, which is, I think, the temple, is what he's referring to. He's calling the temple in Jerusalem God's palace. Isn't that interesting? I have to save that for another time, too. You know El, you know Hithpa'el now. Kadosh is holiness. So it's the palace of your holiness, your holy palace is what it's saying. There's the ka, again, your. And I think then we're done. This has been Jonah 2:7 in Hebrew.